So this section is all about competency interviews. And I think this is actually the hardest part of the interview process, are the competency-based questions, because they're just not a natural thing to answer for a lot of people. But it is a perfectly learnable skill. So what I saw in a lot of interviews was it's the person's first interview, and the competency-based interview really doesn't go very well because it's the first time they've been exposed to this. You see them on the second interview and they're a different candidate. So I don't think you should have to go through an interview process just to learn how to do this. So that's one of the reasons that I set this course up. So what we're going to do here is look at how to interpret competency-based questions, how you prepare for them, the kind of different answers that you can use, how you get your science, that technical knowledge, into your answers, and we're going to look at a few examples here, but there's also a downloadable form with a whole host of different competency-based questions for you to look at. So the competency-based interview. Tell me about a time when you did this. Tell me about your greatest failure, which is the one I always love. Tell me about a time where you faced something, They are strange questions, and I think they're quite difficult for people with scientific training to answer. But it's a learnable skill, so you're perfectly fine. Large companies use these almost ubiquitously, not just for your first job, but any job you apply to after this, you will have competency-based interviews to deal with as well. So they're not going anywhere, so you do need to get used to them. Small companies tend to use them, but sometimes they're better worded competency-based questions. And again, you do find them in startup interviews, but they're a little less diluted. You get less of them in your interview than you would do in a large company. So whatever you're applying to, you kind of need to know how to cope with competency-based interviews. So what is a competency question? It's really, in my personal opinion, it's an overcomplicated way of getting you to share a range of your skill sets. I think there's much easier ways of doing this, but this is the way that companies have chosen to do it. You'll find that the competency questions that you're being asked align with the core values of the company. So that's always a good thing to look up to check and see what they are, whether it's integrity or resilience or whatever keywords they've chosen. They will probably crop up in your competency questions. So what you need to do in your answer is to give a range of examples that show your personal and your technical skills. And I can't emphasize this enough, that it's so easy to not answer a competency question with a technical answer. But you need to do that. The key to working with competency questions is basically decode what they're asking you, have a set of answers ready to go, work out which answer fits that one, and give that answer. So we're going to go through those stages as we go through here. So key, it's got its own slide. Get the technical information in. The way that competency-based questions are often asked leads you to think that people are not looking for technical examples. So I get given, quite reasonable examples about when people were working a summer camp somewhere, or where they were working with this group of people, when they were working at their job in a supermarket, or not when they were working on their project at work, at university or at school, so they could talk about how they overcame a technical problem within a group. You need that technical information there. You're being interviewed by technical people that care about your technical skills. So that's what you need to get across. So even when the question doesn't sound technical, try and use a technical example. So I've said that competency-based questions are a learnable skill. How do we prepare for it? So I found the easiest way when I was doing this is I went through all the different sets of skills that I have, everything from work, from my experience inside and out of work, and just kind of wrote a one-sentence summary of the different things I wanted to bring out. So maybe a project here where I'd worked in a group, a project here where I'd taken the lead in a group to do something, a project here where I'd worked on by myself, all sorts of different examples. And just have a whole host of different things to look at. And then for each one of these examples, so like it's a scenario, basically, bullet point the key points that you want to bring out. So yes, you might have your third year project, your fourth year project as two different examples. Be aware of the different skills that this shows and what you want to explain as you go along. Remember to include the technical information. So do talk about the project that you are actually working on, or the course that you were studying for, or something that's outside of your education, maybe the part-time job or whatever, but has a bearing on your work life. So you have this list of skills, experiences, with a little summary about each one of them. You get a list of competency questions, and essentially read the competency question, work out what it's asking, and fit your experience to it. So it's just like an allocation task. You have all the information that you want to tell the interviewers. They're going to give you some questions, and you work out which anecdote works with which question the best. So what examples can you use? Any example is fine. It can be from school, from university, from the societies you're in, hobbies you've done, if you're in the guides or the scouts or taekwondo or dancing clubs, if you went to cadets. Stuff that you've done at home actually works very well as well. Have you had to set up your own Wi-Fi system when lockdown happened? All sorts of different stuff. The example kind of isn't important. It's how you tell it, how you draw out that information that you want to tell the interviewer, and how you present yourself whilst you're doing it. So don't lie, don't exaggerate, but you don't necessarily have to tell the whole truth. One of the traps that people fall into is they start talking about one aspect of a project, and then they tell you about the 5 things that went disastrously, appallingly wrong with this project that actually aren't to do with what they're telling you, and then they go back to telling you the bit that is of interest. So that's another reason why you have an idea in your head for each situation, what you want to tell people. So you know that for this example, I'm going to say that I worked within a team. I saw the team wasn't working, so I decided to take the lead and assign tasks to people to do, as an example. You don't need to tell them about all the other stuff that went horribly wrong, or brilliantly well, even. That isn't relevant to what you're trying to get across. We did mention this in the previous course, but don't claim to have an exotic hobby if you don't have that hobby. Don't claim that you did more than you did in the situation. Don't claim you've got further in hobbies than you actually have done. So tell the truth, basically. Don't exaggerate. You will be fantastic enough as you are without putting in this extra layer. And it's just very easy to get caught out, particularly that you quite often get numerous people from the same university, say applying to the same grad scheme. You could have interviewed someone that did the same group task as you, and you might well found out. So interpretation, how do you work out what on earth this competency-based question is asking you? So listen to the question. If it helps you write it down, that's perfectly fine. If you didn't quite understand it, ask them to repeat it and work out what it's asking you. So one of the ones I really hate, what is your biggest mistake? You don't actually want to answer what your biggest mistake is. That's not a good idea. But find something from your anecdote list that really didn't actually go very well, that you either sorted out, or with hindsight, you know how to sort it out. So you can say, for example, I was studying for one of my exams, and there was a section that I just, I really didn't understand. And I really should have got some extra help on it. So the next time you faced this, next time you were struggling with something, you went and got the extra help to help you understand that situation. So you're not going, oh yeah, I failed an exam. if it got to that, and it's like, right, well, that's great. You know, how do you improve on that? You said, this was the situation. This is what I did at the time. This is what I reflected on, and this is what I did or will do next time in that situation. So it's not a failure, it's a learning experience, a lovely term. But you've not left it as a negative thing. You have shown that you are competent, that you can think for yourself, that you can analyse the situation, and you can do something about it.